So this hand basically is a double mulligan. Any lands past your third are pretty much blanks. Um, I'd rather have a random six than this five, even though this, like, if this was a five, I'd be very happy about it. See, we got to turn three lands into two burn spells here. Perfect. Hand magically transformed into very good. Don't ask about the fetch line mix. It's literally whichever ones ended up on my account. Um, it doesn't matter. They're all mountains. So the ideal curve for this hand is this. Foothills. Yay! A mirror match. Ooh, that's not good for our opponent. Multiple levels of not good, actually. There's the I have a creature and they don't. There's the took extra damage off a pain land or a fetch land there. There's a lot of problems with what just happened. And then again, that could also happen, which is kind of problematic for me. So, trying to figure out what the optimal line is. I feel like it's suspend Riftbolt, play Arid Mesa. Next turn I get to leave up Searing Blaze. I don't really think that our opponent has a creature though. I think that leaving up Searing Blaze cost is like a potential 2 life cost. So I'm saying leaving up Searing Blaze, I'm saying leaving up specifically the fetch for the Searing Blaze. Okay. So this changes the equation a little bit. I'm okay being off of a white source in the short term in order to prevent 2 damage to myself. So what's going to happen is I'm going to be forced to cast this, which would deal 2 damage to me, but I'm going to fetch on my upkeep to landfall the Searing Blaze here. Yeah, I'm okay with adding effectively, it's like 5 blinks to my deck. When drawing, like there's a ton of fetches. In order to save 2 life here. Especially when that 2 life is the difference between 12 and 13. Or 13 and 11, sorry. I guess I could have pointed the Rift Bolt at the Eidolon, but I don't really want to use a burn spell on that. Especially with the Blaze in my hand that has to be cast at some point. So I'm going through all these numbers, so I should probably walk through the scenarios a little more clearly. So if I fetch with the Arid Mesa on my opponent's end step, I'm going to go to this 15. I'm going to go to 13 off the Rift Bolt, and then I'm probably going to Searing Blaze the Eidolon going to 11, and then Lava Spike putting my opponent to 9. Whereas if I do this, it's 9 with the Skullcrack for an effective 6, so short 2 burn spells. However, if I do this, I end up fetching on my upkeep going to 15, Searing Blazing going to 13, and then I don't take 2 off the Rift Bolt trigger. And the difference between 13 and 11 is quite a bit. Obviously, if my opponent has a Boros Charm, I go to 9, which is 3 burn spells. If there's no Boros Charm involved, then the differential of the 2 damage there is basically just a full additional card, a full additional turn. Which is a lot in this matchup. Even if the implication is that if I draw a white spell, I have to fetch to get there, I think it's worth it to do it this way. I guess there's also the possibility that you can't really do that though. So The other possibility is you could not Arid Mesa, just Rift Bolt and pass and try to get damage off of the Eidolon. But letting my opponent convert that Eidolon to any amount of additional damage by attacking is really bad, because if they have the Eidolon and you don't, you actually just get into this position where you're locked out very quickly. Same play as last turn. And that's just a matter of you don't want to end a game in a situation where you have a mana up for your 1 mana burn spell, but that burn spell is Rift Bolt, and it effectively locks you out of the game to do that. So we can take 6 down to 7, put our opponent to 3, 5, 3. Obviously, this is a drawback of suspending, but so the problem with shooting our opponent here is that if you look at the damage we're taking 6 from these 3 spells that we have to cast to kill them, plus another 2 off the next spell, so 8, and then 2 off this attack, which is 3, with our opponent at 3, which means we die to the Eidolon trigger, our last spell gets cast, an Eidolon triggers, and then an instant speed burn spell kills us in response, because we're at 3 life with the lethal burn spell on the stack. So that's a little sketchy. So I'm just going to play the game for a bit more top decks. I think we have a little more time because our opponent's stuck on lands, which limits their ability to deploy burn spells. Yeah, that card doesn't mean anything. And I want to use this here in case I draw another Rift Bolt or something. Or another of that card. Sorry, Skullcrack. So I'm taking 3, 4, 5 down to 6. It's not technically dead. I do need to fetch my opponent's end step. So yeah, for a white source to maximize my outs. Yep. I guess we're in this kind of awkward scenario where if our opponent attacks the Lavamancer and passes, I mean, they won't do that because if they had a burn spell that dealt 3, I guess they'd kill me in response to the fetch. So I can add 5 outs, or I cannot die to a 3 damage burn spell here. Considering the fact that my opponent's sequencing has actually used all of their mana every turn, I'm just going to play as if there's another 3 mana burn spell hanging out back there. I guess there's not really technically a reason to cast this Lightning Bolt in my entire deck. Okay, did it. Yeah, so if my opponent had ever had a mana that they hadn't used that entire game, I would have immediately fetched on their end step to open up the draws of Boros Charm or Lightning Helix. But as is, the fetch would put me to 3 life, which would mean I die to a Lightning Bolt or a Shard Volley from their hand, which I didn't think was a risk I wanted to take because there were a lot of points where they wouldn't have wanted to cast one of those cards. Though I guess always with Shard Volley, because there's... So the thing with Shard Volley is you never ever want to cast it on your opponent's... that's not never ever, but it doesn't make sense to cast it on your opponent's end step. So this card comes in, this card comes in, and this card comes in. I don't think people really have Leyline anymore. How did I board in this matchup at the Pro Tour? I believe that was a cut. I had a very good sideboard plan figured out for this. Give me a second here. Boros Charm's fine. Eidolon's actually good here, unlike versus Zoo, because it's a matter of who has the initiative. Searing Blaze is great. Rift Bolt's great. Shard Volley's a 1 damage burn spell. Goblin Guide's fine. I think this was the card I boarded out. I have the Firewalkers here. So when I didn't have Firewalkers, I left in some Skullcracks because I needed to fight their Firewalkers more than anything else. Because this can prevent... If a creature gets into combat with a Firewalker, you can Skullcrack so the damage from protection isn't prevented. That one's simple. I'm going to shave a Shard Volley. And... I don't know what the last cut is. Maybe a Rift Bolt. I think the timing on Rift Bolt can get a little awkward. Do like Boros Charm. I did shave Boros Charms at the Pro Tour because I had Lightning Helixes, and often there were like race scenarios with those cards that got a little sketchy. I don't really like this hand. It's basically 9 points of burn and bricks, so I'm just going to ship it. I guess we're on to 5. Great 5, though. So I don't have a core Firewalker, so I think I'm going to fetch conservatively. So on the defensive here, let's actually think about what I want to do here. I can't really let... I think I want to try to go under my opponent before they can utilize the most number of cards. Like with double Goblin... Well, specifically the second Goblin Guide is the key there. Is that if I just have one Goblin Guide, there's no way for me to get under my opponent. But with 2, I think it's possible. If this is a Firewalker, I'm just dead, though. That's fine. Yeah. Oh. That's also fine. That's less than fine. So... Opponent has 4... I don't think 10 is significantly different at this point of the game. Another Searing Blaze? That's a problem. Trying to figure out 8, 5... Yeah, I definitely attack here. If I get double burn spelled, whatever. But this plays around a lot of the other situations, I think. Helix. That's a Helix. I'm in big trouble. That's fine. Fine, loosely. Probably messed this up. I think that I should have lightning bolted the Goblin Guide there, but so my opponent couldn't Boros Charm it. Boros Charm indestructible, that is. Like, if I'm going to draw a land, I'll draw a land. I don't think it's mathematically possible for me to win this game from this point. I will, however... I probably should have conceded this game. Yeah, I actually know my opponent has enough burn here to win the game. Should. Actually, I'll make them show. I know Boros Charm Skullcrack. I don't have to get Searing Blaze this game. I'll concede just so I don't show Firewalker or whatever. So my opponent certainly acted as if they have Firewalker by fetching the 2/1 tap basics there. Yeah. I'll leave in the fire rates for now. They're not the best, but they're not horrible. Don't know if I actually like this hand. It is Goblin Guide on the play. It's probably like 4-13. I think I keep. It's really close, I think. I think this also fetches a red-white. Oh, there's a mulligan. I just think that the penalty for missing with this hand is like reasonably low for the first turn. But the reward for hitting is super high. It's not a bad one to draw given my setup here. I'm okay with this attack because it forces this card to just eat a lightning bolt, which is a-okay with me at this point. I think I just cast the Lava Spike. Not 100% on that line. Not sure that flexibility with Lightning Bolt matters more. I think it's... See, that's like the problem play here, but it does induce a like cast of a Goblin Guide a bit more, which is nicer. Maybe I should have just left up a Lightning Bolt there. It's probably tap land. There we go. Well, I'm just going to Helix that guy right now. Not get skull cracked. No nonsense. Not going to take extra damage. Do I Helix that or do I Helix my opponent? I think it's that. I think I have enough draw steps left in this game that if I remove the Swift Spear, I'm in good shape. Especially because I'm going to dead this Searing Blaze. I'm just not going to cast a creature. Yeah, so my opponent has only 4 potential live cards in their hand. Though if there's a core Firewalker involved, I'm just out. Just completely out of it. Okay. We're good. Rift Bolts. Okay. Spike. Double Rift Bolts. Okie dokie. About that previous plan. Just going to cast this card here. Living my opponent's Searing Blaze is worth less. I think it's worth less than the damage that this Eidolon is guaranteed to deal now. That's fine. So cool. Eidolon took... Yeah, that was great. The Eidolon gained me 3 and dealt my opponent 2 there. Perfect. There's still a dead Searing Blaze in my opponent's hand. Yeah, if they had left up a fetch land at some point that turn, obviously you can't do that. But because I was forcing them to act before the Searing Blaze would be live, I was perfectly fine with that situation. Well, opponent is dead to a land with a brick in their hand. This is a Helix. This game gets interesting. Nope, it's the bad one. And I know the last card in my opponent's hand's a brick, so. I'm perfectly safe to do this. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I never liked Core Firewalker in this matchup. It's just so awkward to get your, like, unless you draw it in your opener, it's so awkward to get the lands out for it. And, like, if you have it in your opener, it's obviously game breaking, but if you just can't, like, if you just draw it on, like, turn 4, you're like, oh, I didn't want to fetch a second Sacred Foundry over this game. I don't know. I think that Lightning Helix might actually be a better card here. Or Dragon's Claw, if you really want to go that deep. But, yeah, that's the Burn Mirror. It's actually, there's a lot of interesting decision points every time you play it. Which is kind of funny considering I assume most people would guess that it's pretty non-interactive. But, like, getting that Searing Blaze up until the point where I'd force my opponent to move with the Rift Bolts. So either they'd take 6 off the Eidolon to kill it, Rift Bolt, Searing Blaze, or it would gain me life by forcing them to kill it with a Rift Bolt. So it's pretty sweet. Deading Searing Blazes, boarding around Firewalkers, figuring out, like, you could also board around Leyline. Yeah, I think Leyline's, like, if there's 4 of them in the deck, it's kind of backbreaking, but I don't think you can really afford that. Anyways, enough commentary on the basic Mountain Mirror.